Hello, high schoolers. Father Dries here. I have two more questions from November 5th. These are on prayer. The first one is, how do I know what God's voice is and not my own imagination? Excellent question. So how do you distinguish? How do you discern, sift through what's of God and what's of yourself? Well, anything that's like clearly sinful, like that's not of God, all right? What's So that's part of the what God has revealed in and is handed on through His Catholic Church. It kind of gives us kind of guidelines of, okay, here's God. What God is going to ask of you, kind of, it's within this realm. Here are the rails. If it's outside of the rails, out of bounds, then that's definitely not of God. If it's a matter inside the rails, then it perhaps could be the Lord, prudential, kind of trying to direct you in a particular kind of how to address this issue in this way. Now, part of it could be, are also our minds are at work in that. I think in terms of, what's God's voice, often in prayer, in particular in prayer, how do I know I'm not just making all this up? It's not just I'm having am I really having a conversation with God, or is it just me having a conversation with myself? And so I think, and this can, the next question, I'll read it, and kind of, they're interrelated. I keep hearing that I should pray in silence sometimes. However, I struggle with distractions, and I just hear my own voice, my own thoughts. How can I learn to pray in silence? Part of praying in silence, it's how can I be receptive? I think that's maybe, we don't pray in silence to be like a void, but it's so I can be kind of more receptive to what God wants to give me. And so the person wrote that I just hear my own thoughts. I struggle with distractions. So, your own thoughts. So that actually can be great material to bring to the Lord. Your own thoughts, especially the thoughts that keep coming up, or the distractions that keep coming up. I think, this is important to have a Bible, kind of having a passage, or something to bring to the Lord, so that, because when we get distracted, it's good to have something to focus back on. Kind of to reset our focus. Or we have maybe some matter like, God, I need to talk to you about this. And so that's what you bring to your mental prayer. Kind of this mental prayer I'm referring to is, as St. Teresa of Avila says, being on terms of friendship with the God, kind of relating your heart and kind of having this dialogue. So much more spontaneous prayer, but there's this acknowledging and relating what's going on internally, and then giving that space for God to respond. And that's really where the silence comes in. And so just as in a conversation, if you do all the talking, if I do all the talking, I'm not going to be able to hear the other person. As well as if I'm talking, I can't talk and drink water at the same time. All right. So this idea of being able to receive, there's kind of a passiveness that we need to avail ourselves to. That's really what the silence, to put it in that. And so it's a silence, not just kind of shutting down, but it's more a silence, and then at the same time, an attentiveness to the one whom I'm waiting, I'm open to receive from. And often God is giving us graces in those receptive times that we don't even see. But He's at work. And we're just opening ourselves up by giving that space, even these little windows in prayer, like, 10, 20, 30 seconds at a time of, you bring something to the Lord, and then you just kind of give that space. Lord, what do you have to think about this? What are your thoughts on this? And even, kind of every, you can kind of every, 10 seconds or so, kind of ask, Lord, what are your thoughts on this? That's to help you stay focused on the Lord. So these little ways, these gentle ways that you can even help, because we're human, we get distracted. The saints got distracted. And so having these ways that you help you stay attentive. So it's not just, I need to shut down silence and then God's going to somehow, no, it's in a relationship. And so if you need to help, some saints have found it very helpful, people find it helpful to imagine like the Lord is, sitting right across, in a chair, 5 feet away from you, or sitting right next to you, and just having that conversation there, that can help visualize, like, the Lord is a divine person, but Jesus he took on a human flesh. And so, how, if Jesus was sitting right next to me, how would I relate to him? And that can help actually, like, oh yeah, I wouldn't do all the talking if I wanted to hear what he had to say. I would give space. And there'd be times where it's okay for there to be a certain just kind of silence. Now, how do I know when it's God's voice and mine? Well, if it's in bounds, and if you're, even at, if you think like, well, I don't know, is this myself or God? To, put it back in God's court. God, is this from you, or is this from me? Is this from you? And Lord, if it's from you, pass it back to me. And can you verify? So, 1 Samuel chapter 3, when Samuel is called by God, there's 4 times when God calls him, and Eli, he gets up and he goes to Eli, you called me, and you're like, I didn't call you, go back to bed. And God calls him, and eventually Eli realized, oh, God's calling you. So he didn't know his voice, and sometimes it's okay. God's not going to be like, you didn't you didn't understand it was me the first time. No, it's actually, there's something good about testing like that. Not in the sense of like you're like putting God on record, but it's actually because of, I can fool myself. There's a certain humility there. Before I become more attuned to the Lord and how he works and how he communicates in my life, that's healthy. Just if you don't know someone's voice very well, you might say, is that you? Is that you, Joe? Maybe you met Joe or something, or, someone for the first time, and they call your name, and you're like, I don't know that voice that well. Is that you, Joe? And Joe's like, yeah, it's me. Or it's, who are you, Joe? Who are you talking about? I'm not Joe. Same with God doesn't take offense at it. It's because of our weakness, and it can be good. So don't, it's often in prayer with, kind of spending time with the Lord. It's not the amount of material we get through, but it's kind of spending time with the Lord and being attentive to him, and bringing what's going on in our lives. What are the thoughts? What are the distractions? Bringing them to the Lord and asking, Lord, what do you make of this? What do you want me to do with this? And not saying, God, you do it all. But no, Lord, how give me guide me, Lord, and give me the grace I need to kind of respond and cooperate with your graces. So how it's God's voice. It takes time, but just giving that time of slowing down and ask, Lord, is this you? If it's you, Lord, can you make this come back and have it come bigger? If it's of the Lord, it's going to come back, and you're like, that came out of the blue. This desire or this thought keeps coming back, and I don't want it. I don't know why this is coming here. That may be the Lord saying, hey, let's talk about this. Or, no, I want you to look into this. Let's talk about this. And then silence, just giving those, just as you give a pause and you allow for someone else to speak, I think that's really the place to start having silence in prayer. It's not silence for the sake of silence. It's silence so that I can just receive what the Lord wants to give. And because really, prayer primarily is something God does. All of our prayer is a response first of God, who loves us, delights in us, wants to draw us to himself. And so our silence kind of in prayer is to speak, okay, Lord, you're the one that started this whole conversation, and where do you want the conversation to go next? What are your thoughts on this? So put it very kind of personal centered. The silence, it's not technique, but it's more of relationship, and just being attentive to the person of the Lord. Not like I got to get a proper mix of silence and talking, and there's something of it. You can't do all the talking, But it's not like once I get this equation down, then I'll be able to master prayer. No, it's an art, which means, and it's a relationship. There's no easy kind of formula, but it requires that we make the time. Great questions, high schoolers. Keep them coming. God bless.